in terms of trying to explain, I mean, I know you guys heard from Rich Roberts yesterday, which I was kind of surprised that he came. Like, we're kind of a fiercely introverted bunch, us surveyors, and we're like industrious. So I'm like, wow, this guy, cared enough to take time out of his workday to come uh, express the importance of surveying. And I don't know how much, if any of you guys have ever had surveys done, but I'll just give you just a basic, kind of super high level view, and it'll start with, in Oregon's Constitution, the first thing you had to do when you wanted to form a county after 1859 was to elect a county surveyor. You had to describe the boundaries of your county. The county surveyor was the basis for drawing tax maps, because everything is quantified off of land and the physical and legal location of land. In that system, we have the public land survey system, which is township, range, and section, the physical marks that everybody's deed is based off of. And county surveyor is tasked with maintaining those marks. We do that through the Cornerstone restoration program, $10 per document of very dedicated money through the clerk's office. When I came here, the first thing I did was take a hard look at what are those fees in the clerk's office. Like, what documents are they on? And what I found out is we were maybe collecting those fees on half of the number of documents that we legally could. So worked with the board, worked with Ted's office, and we put together a board order that clarified that it is all documents. So our revenue doubled per month, but we're not talking huge revenue. We're talking maybe now, instead of seeing $1,500 a month, we're seeing $3,000, but crumbs make bread. So the other thing we did was we came up with the surveyor services fee, which was something new. There's only one other county in the state that has it, and that's another county where I've been the county surveyor. And that is dedicated monies to the county surveyor's office collected per document. And that was a new fee. We received $15 per document. What's unique about that versus the corner fund is that it is not dedicated within the surveyor's office, where the corner fund is very express in statute to public land survey corners. And in terms of like what we're doing, right, this is relative to overall property. This is literally whose is what, where it is, and then how we divide land. And in the division of land and the location of land, county surveyor is required to look at a bunch of technical elements. So when Surveyor Roberts does a partition plat or he does a boundary for survey for somebody, it has to be reviewed before we can legally file it. And I can tell you from what I've seen, and I mean, I don't need to speak ill of the last, but like from what I've seen get filed here in the last 6 years, we were not doing anything close to what we were supposed to in terms of allowing of surveys to get filed. And frankly, this is just my professional opinion, we are super fortunate as a county here to have a private practitioner like Surveyor Roberts, who does the majority of the work, and his work is outstanding. But now we have a tremendous amount of other folks coming in, doing work here, and it's not even just private surveyors, it's ODOT that could turn in a 45-page map on Highway 101. So things have just kind of changed, and I think, dare I say, like the good old days of like the locals will take care of it. It's not just locals anymore. It's just people coming in, different practices, don't know the title records, and this is really about protecting the county's greatest asset. And we're not talking county land, we're talking everybody's land. That if you do not take care of property lines and land division appropriately, you pretty much have utter chaos. And then in terms of the tax assessor's ability to accurately draw tax maps and assess people on their ad valorem values for accurate square footage, you have to have survey records. So, this budget here for the surveyor's office, what I'm getting at is basically since I've been here, relative to past years, we've tripled the revenue from non-general fund sources. the middle of this year, doubled the fees. And in terms of how I came up with fees, I mean, I'm a math person. You know, I could tell you what it costs per hour for me to do something as the county surveyor. And what I refer to as a loaded rate with all of the materials and services and fringe, like roughly about $110 an hour. You go call a private surveyor, you cannot get them to move for less than $200 an hour. And so what I'm saying is, relative to a contractor, the cost per hour, we're doing it for less. And
I also I feel like we gotta move on, but I just wanna kind of give the overview for Scott. What he's glossing over is that the surveyor's office was in a state of complete disarray, and having organized maps and having things that you can actually find when people come up and wanna make a land use move, and that you need to be able to access those maps. A lot of the time that was spent over the last year was reorganizing maps, figuring out what we had, where it is, getting it indexed and getting it accessible, and they've done an outstanding job on that. I think that given time, Scott is industrious. He's also he's inventive. You'll see more of it, but basically, doing a great job. I kind of feel like we should move on.
Yep, and I don't mean to beat it up too much, but it's like, it's just tough. It's like we're forgotten. Like, people forget about this stuff. Why do we need to do this? And, you know, we've done the best that we could to get creative, cut expenses, and then in the process, willingness to kind of hybridize with another county department, just to hope it is successful.
And I want to draw attention to, on his budget, with his increased fees and such, he is building a contingency, some rollover funds that is budgeted about almost $35,000, which is at the bottom of his budget for the surveyor, to help offset costs in the following year. So with his projected process, we actually will be building fund balances in that
It's the way
fund.
to run a department.
So to help support itself.
And then the last thing I'll mention is, the other thing the surveyor's office is doing is there's various county real property matters. Like, for example, Social Security Bar was asked to, you know, the county has a lease on state land, and I was asked to locate the property boundary of the high water mark, which is the boundary between public and private. And then there's been some right-of-way matters, and just random things come up, like, whose land is the RV on the turnout on 80 Acres Road? Is it in our right-of-way? You know, things of that nature. Yeah, thanks for listening to me. Obviously, you guys can tell I care about this. I'd like to be a part of this county long term. It's a pretty amazing place, but the finances are pretty scary.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. So parks. Charles is in charge of parks, which is in the community development, as well as occupancy and building maintenance and repair, which is in the general fund. Occupancy is actually under administration, and building maintenance and repair is also, but does require a small amount of general fund support in order to keep our assets in good order and up to code and stuff without leaking roofs and such, so.
Thank you for having me. I'm Director of Maintenance and Parks. First of all, I want to say I'm going to try and drag this out as long as possible, and no, I can't do it. We have worked with Keena. We came up with some numbers where we're able to bring our budget down to 41%. We took out monies from the building and repair. We've brought that down, and what that means in the end run is that we're not going to be able to have big projects coming up